The number one question I still get asked and have for the last 15 years is, how do I find good salespeople? It's still a big challenge. It continues to be a challenge. And I think part of that is most organizations don't spend a lot of time or the right amount of time on educating and training their salespeople, number one. Number two is salespeople aren't taking the initiative or the effort to get the education, to going online and finding out details and spending time on their education, their sales knowledge, their sales education, and what it takes to be a great salesperson. And I think the other piece is organizations now are taking on becoming more of a personality. I think it used to be that if you could be a good salesperson, you could work anywhere and make money at it and be a good salesperson. I don't think that's as much the case anymore, that in so many organizations now I say to the leadership, you've got to hire the right salesperson, but you've also got to make sure they fit into your organization and fit your personality. Not only their personality, but the corporate personality. Every organization now has a different personality. Part of that is based on what's the age of the workforce. If you're going into a Google or a Twitter organization and everybody's in their 20s, if you're in your 50s, you're going to have a really hard time fitting into that culture, fitting into that personality of that organization. And so one of the challenges about finding good salespeople now is you have to be looking for them all the time. And where are they? The good salespeople are working. They're employed. They're not sitting at home in their bathrobes waiting for your phone call, number one. Number two is the world's changing. So the sales rep you needed 2 years ago is going to be different than the sales rep you may need today. So you've got to be really clear on what is it you're hiring, who is it you're hiring, and how do you hire that individual based on their background. Are they male or female? All of those things that politically correct-wise we're not supposed to talk about, but are really important in the organization and in your hiring process. Number two is, once you find them, how do you get them on board? How do you attract them? And secondly, what's the onboarding process you take them for and take them through? Because if you don't have that process, they may not last much more than 6 months because they don't understand your business, they haven't been welcomed, and they've just left a good job to come and work for you and are feeling like, what was I thinking when I came over here? And then I think the third piece is, once they're in there, what are we doing to retain our people? What are we doing with that sales culture, with the organizational culture, to keep those people and keep them engaged? Because I say this all the time, I believe it, I lived it as a sales rep, I see it all the time with organizations. Salespeople do not leave organizations because of money, they leave because of leadership, period. And so what are you doing to make sure you're not that statistic and that you're attracting and retaining people, and when it's time for someone to move on, they leave the organization. But it's not because they don't have the right leadership. It's time to retire, it's time that they're leaving the country or whatever that's going on in their world. It's not because they're leaving to make more money. Because as soon as the sales rep on an exit interview says they're leaving to make more money, they're leaving because of your leadership in your organization. They just don't want to tell you that. So there's a lot to look at when you're hiring salespeople, when you're working with your sales team, and that should be the number one focus for all the sales leaders out there as you're moving forward.